Hello, everyone.
Hello. Sorry for the late start. I know it's 2 minutes.
It's only by like 2 minutes. We're fine.
Yeah, but I mean...
I know, last time I got it started a little bit earlier. We were busy. Getting things ready.
Yeah, getting things ready. But it's okay, because we're not actually playing a game tonight. So, not as big of a deal.
And we are down to CoC.
Yes. It's funny, her husband's in computers. Like, that's what he does for a living, I guess. She's having internet issues. Weather related, but yeah. Anyway. So, yeah, like I said, we're not playing tonight, so that's the good news. I'm Dengle. We've got a Faye, which has already talked. A Buttons. And then a Nenavar. Pretty much going to do a recap tonight, right? It's kind of what we agreed on.
Well, we were going to actually do our Above the Table talks.
Oh, yeah, that too.
And then do the recap.
Yeah. Which
there's a spider crawling across my screen. That's cool.
Yay! Wrong night for that, buddy. Go away.
Right. I'll be right back.
So, yeah. Above the Table talks. Was going to be the nuances between the systems that we played, correct? Okay. I got a affirmative head nod from Buttons. If you can't see, so.
Comparing and contrasting a little bit between Call of Cthulhu Dungeons and Dragons and Vampire the Masquerade.
Yes. And good news, I'm not going to be the only one talking this entire thing, because I know at least 2 of you have looked extensively into it. Might not remember everything, but it's okay.
That's okay. You'll chime in with other games, I think.
Yeah. Because I believe I've probably played the most variety of games.
I have played these 3.
Yeah. And Buttons, I know you've played quite a few as well, but I don't know exactly the extent.
Most of my experience has actually been Dungeons and Dragons. Played a little bit of Vampire and Werewolf before we started these games. This is my first Call of Cthulhu game, and I did a little bit of Pathfinder, but not enough to really get into it.
Yeah, I guess technically I have played Pathfinder 1E, but it was a very, very short game. It was a few, I don't know, we maybe played 6, 7 games of it.
Yeah. And then, if I'm not mistaken, you've played Dungeons and Dragons, this Call of Cthulhu, and Dragon Quest.
Hero Quest.
Hero Quest. That's the one. I knew something Quest. And beyond that, you've played a lot of Skyrim and Morrowind and Oblivion.
Yep.
Hundreds of hours for me too.
I'd put in that in probably the thousands of hours for Morrowind.
Yep. I think I've been playing.
I don't
2003.
I don't remember all of them. I just know one of my characters had like 400 some hours. One character, by the way.
Nice. I don't think I've ever sunk that much time in any one game. But, well, that's not true. Pathfinder.
I don't know. I have like a year's worth of playtime logged on my main World of Warcraft character, so like we're good there.
Yeah. So yes, we've played multiple tabletop. Not so much. Yeah, I've definitely got the most like tabletop experience as far as Pathfinder. I've played D&D 2, 3, 3.5. Played a single game of 4E, which no. Faye kind of likes 4E.
I don't like 4E. I have played 4E.
Yes, and then obviously 5. Played Pathfinder 1. We played a couple sessions of Pathfinder 2. Kind of played around with it a little bit.
Yeah. Like 1, I think.
Yeah, 1 or 2. Yeah, we planned a second one, but
never happened.
Yeah. Couldn't get schedules aligned. Uh,
Imagine that. The bane of TTRPGs.
yeah. And then obviously, Call of Cthulhu, VtM. I've never played Werewolves, which I would absolutely be willing to play if anybody's like, hey, I have a spot. As well as Hunter and Mages. Wraith, I don't know.
I really want to try Werewolf, Mages, and what was the other one? I don't remember. Hunter, that was it.
Yep. So yeah, if you have those and you're looking for somebody, let me know. I'll at least hop in for a game or two.
Don't poach Dengle from us completely, please.
Oh no. Well, I'm available Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. That's it. Every other day, I got other things to do. I need at least weekend with my kids. So yeah. Let's see here. Anyway, let's hop into this whole thing, and I will chime in as we needed. So first things first. The main mechanical differences between Call of Cthulhu, VtM, and D&D. To do things in D&D and that style system, you need a D20. And then you add numbers. For your VtM, you have your regular dice, you got your blood dice, which I don't know how well this is going to show up, but those things. Red ones, blood. Black ones, regular. I know it's great for audio only, but it's okay. You can do it with D10s. Works just the same. I just like these because you don't even have to think about it. It's got something on it. Okay, cool. What does it have? VtM goes off of a dice pool, which I'll kind of explain in a little bit. You Shadowrun players, you know exactly what a dice pool is, though. And then you add, usually it's a stat and a skill together. Sometimes you add two stats together, or sometimes, if it fits, you can add like two skills or a discipline and a skill or something of that nature. And that's how you do things in VtM. Then as far as Call of Cthulhu, it's all D100 based. You want to roll under whatever your rating is. So like Captain Everett Nichols wants to fire a rifle. He's got a 95. He has to roll under a 95. That's the extent of it. And then you can do damage and you get extra dice in there and it's all that fun stuff. That's the basic mechanics of it. It's not too crazy.
No, not too crazy. It took me a minute to like actually get everything down, but I find it now, outside of character creation, play-wise, I think VtM is a much simpler game to play.
Absolutely.
Like not taking combat into account with Dungeons and Dragons or anything, like VtM is a much simpler game to play.
Yeah, because it's very like, here are the rules and this is what you follow. They give you enough wiggle room to kind of do what you want with it. And call for rolls as needed rather than everything requires a roll.
Right. I don't want to call it rules light, because it's not. There are a lot of rules with it, but they're easier to manage.
Yes. And I know, like, with us, it helps our play go faster. Because I do a lot of, like, unless if it's something very specific, like when Tori was trying to get information out of Red. If you're going to talk to somebody, I'm not going to make you roll. Unless it's like, are you specifically trying to intimidate or persuade or do this or do that or the next thing? So it helps us kind of move things a little bit faster. Lets narrative take over rather than like numbers and crunchy and all that fun stuff. Whereas like D&D, you make this big long speech and you're like, all right, cool, I want to roll to persuade, I guess. Then you have to like roll, and depending on what that outcome is, which is a set DC and it's got this and it got that. Yeah. You've got a lot bigger margin for error. Whereas VtM, it's... I mean, you've got a margin for error, but generally speaking, it's pretty straightforward.
They also lay out what you succeeds and fails much, much better than Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And from what I have been reading.
Yeah, like a very basic, like, I want to jump over a puddle. It's one success. And it'll be strength or dexterity and athletics. I want to, I don't know, throw a football at a moving target. It's going to be 2 successes. I want to know this esoteric thing about a Ravnos clan that you don't see very much of. It's going to be 4 or 5, probably. Stuff like that. So it still is kind of up to the storyteller of like how easy do you think this is, and basically you go from 1 to 5. So,
but it's not. I need to learn, or I need to try and figure out what this creature is in Dungeons and Dragons, because then it could be: is it nature? Is it survival? Is it arcana? Is it who knows what else?
Yeah.
Older editions, they had a little bit of a better system for it, but 5e does not have a system for it.
No, it does not. And it kind of hurts my heart a little bit. For the simple fact of, like, previous or sister systems for, like, D&D, you roll up on a construct and you're like, what is it? I'm going to do dungeoneering, because that's what it was. There was no, and it was very set in stone. Like, this was this was that, that was that. They got away from that, and cool, it makes it easier for beginner players, but where do we classify it now? Like, a lot of the monstrosities used to be arcana. Now they could be that, or nature, or this, or that, or this. And it's kind of annoying.
It is entirely up to the dungeon master, which is how it should be, but also it doesn't allow players to specifically create a character that's good at something like that, knowledge-wise.
Yeah.
Like, if you're playing the Horizon Walker, what do you pick? Do you pick Arcana because you're dealing with otherworldly planar creatures? Do you pick
religion because of the same thing?
Right. Or survival, or I forget the nature one. Blanking on the word for that. Okay. Yeah, is that what you pick? Like, who knows? Not you.
Yeah, because it's kind of, what do we focus on? And what are we going to run into, and what's going to be useful? And at the end of the day, I've made quite a few characters that I made them do one thing thinking this is what we're going to do. And then the DM was like, I'm going to rule it as this. And I was like, I don't agree, but this is your game, so I'm going to just go with it.
Now, moving towards Call of Cthulhu for this real fast, I think they have a much heavier take on it. Still simpler than Dungeons and Dragons to a point, but there is a lot of options.
Yes.
It can kind of bog things down when you have to try and figure out what you're making them roll.
Yeah, kind of like forget exactly what it was, but the mechanical repair roll that I had you guys make. I think it was for like structure or something.
I think it was the boat structural integrity or something, or finding something on the ship or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And I was like, I don't even know what this would technically be. So I just kind of like arbitrary was like, this would make sense with it. Which again,
Which
Call of
it did.
Cthulhu. Yeah.
But there is pages of options there versus a stat sheet this big.
Yeah.
Or even Dungeons and Dragons list, which is not very large.
I think it's like 15. I think VtM's
Yeah.
got 7 stats for each type of like physical, mental, and personality, or whatever they call it. So there's like 21 in there, but they all directly correlate to something, and it's obvious what they correlate to. And like with VtM, you're not going to be like, is this a demon? Because that's just going to, if it is, cool, it's a cult. Is this a werewolf? It's a cult. Is this a kindred clan? It's a cult.
The tricky thing with that, though, is the specialties. Because you can just throw a word in there.
Yeah. And you can get all sorts of crazy with that. Whereas, like Call of Cthulhu, it's, what is this? Is it a real thing, or is it like a mystical thing? Is it a whatever? Could be in the natural world, could be a cult, could be Cthulhu mythos, which is another thing that I haven't even worked on with you guys. Which that'll be fun when that happens. And there's other things in there too, like it can go under specific science, and that's why I always, when I'm running games, and I know Faye does the same thing. If you can justify it as a different skill, as long as it relates, go for it.
Yes.
And to go along with that, like, even if you can't necessarily like justify it, if you can show some way that you could tie it in to a different skill, it might be hard to do that skill using this skill, but I might allow it.
Like when you had me roll, I think it was like mechanical or something to evaluate the structural integrity of the staircase railing the other night.
Yeah, that one. That's what we were just talking about.
Or when you used medicine to use the Latin in the book, or to like understand the Latin in the book.
Yeah, because yeah, that's right. Because I was specifically looking for medical terminology, so that made it fit.
Yeah, and you could at least know certain words. Might not be one for one, but it's like, okay, I've got a gist of it. Which, I mean, when you throw something into a game and you're not sure if any of your players have it, and then none of them end up having it, then that being a plot point, or a potential plot point or not, I still feel like you should give them some sort of like way to understand what it is.
Yeah, if it's an essential plot point, you're getting it no matter what roll you make.
Yeah.
In some varying degree.
Yeah. Like, if you were here for our Tuesday game, like, Eileen doesn't know what the book says, has a general idea what's in it. That's all that matters, though.
She knows enough to now take that and go research it further.
Yeah, or know enough to be like, I don't want to mess with that.
Let's talk about combat.
Yep. So
moving on from skills to combat.
Yes. So combat, all three of the systems really isn't hard. It's just how much math do you want to do. D&D by far has the most math in it. I don't care. You can't change my mind. you have number plus modifier plus all of these other conditions, and
Let's not even talk about cover and half cover.
yeah, exactly. That's why,
I
like,
will-
I
Sorry,
never
sorry.
used it personally.
Yeah.
Same.
I will say that combat was definitely the biggest thing holding me back from stepping into becoming a DM. I still felt like I was way underprepared for learning how to balance encounters and do quick math like that.
Yeah, the balancing encounters was very tricky for me. Never ran a live recorded game. I ran a voice game and a play-by-post for a bit. And no matter what I tried, they either steamrolled it or it steamrolled them. No matter what the CR told me it should be for 6 characters. 6 to 8 characters.
Yeah, we were 6 level 3 characters.
I mean,
almost died to a water weird.
I think you were 4 or 5 at that point. Yeah, it was like 6 level 5 or 6 characters.
It was
With a... I don't even think it was a water weird. It was a singular water elemental.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was underwater, and I did not impose any disadvantage to you guys with it being underwater. And it still took down the druid multiple times. He had to roll death saves. The combat lasted like 10 rounds.
Yeah. And it's
Which it should have been maybe 2 rounds at most. It was a extraordinarily easy encounter according to the CR chart.
Yeah, and
then I've thrown deadly encounters at you guys that were like way over the margin, and you're like, oh, it's dead in 2 rounds. Cool.
Yeah. That's why, like, D&D and Pathfinder. Pathfinder's way better about actually having balanced encounters by CR. Like, D&D, they don't do a great job with that. They theorize that they do.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, unless if you specifically have somebody that does that, and that's all their job is, you're gonna have these wildly weird, like, balancing.
Like a Banshee being a CR2, despite it being able to knock out like a level 6 to 10 party.
Yes. And then having this basically the same monster with like 30 more HP and like +2 to their like to hit be a CR8. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Have the same abilities, do a little bit more damage, a little bit more HP, and I mean a little bit. And it's 6 or 7 CRs higher.
Yeah.
Like, in their book, they specifically say that if you're over this level, add this many CRs to whatever we put in there. Which, that right there tells you that it's not necessarily actually balanced.
And all the CR math and everything, and we're like, if you have a party of X amount of people, you have to divide it out and then add to... It's ridiculous trying to balance that without their online balancer.
Yeah. So, like, for what it's worth, D&D combat's not bad. It's slow because there's a lot of...
It takes time.
Yes, there's a lot of number crunch. There's a lot of multiple things that you can do, which all of the games have multiple things you can do. However, resolving all of those things usually takes a while. VtM, multiple things you can do, and I mean the whole not ton of things you can do. There's not all those extra numbers. You have a specific dice pool. You roll, they roll. Do you beat them? Add margin to damage. That's basically it.
The biggest modifiers you'll have in there is if you have a discipline that changes something, or if your blood potency changes something. That's it.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
maybe a
like-
weapon, but like that's not anything different than any other game.
Yeah, like specifically, let's say Tori with feral weapons.
Which I found out I've been doing wrong, by the way.
It just adds to the damage. It doesn't add to the dice pool, right?
Yes.
Yep. Which, it's fine. It hasn't really come up that much.
Yeah. Only a couple of combats, but like the combat itself is easy once you understand how your disciplines work.
Yeah. And like I said, you have a bunch of different things you can do. However, you also have this much and a very small pool of like actual useful combat things. Like either fight, shoot, go invisible, Shiloh, or run away. That's pretty much what you're going to do. You're not going to have like this dodge and I'm going to cast this spell and it does this and this area of effect, and unless you play Tremere. And then they get crazy. Or anything else that really has blood magic or blood sorcery. That gets a little bit crazy. And we don't have that in ours for a actual PC yet.
Yet.
Yeah, but it's okay because the person that understands it is going to be playing it. It's not me.
Tori has her blood magic, but it will never be a combat one.
No. So yeah, there's certain points where it can get a little bit confusing and a little bit crunchy and a little bit this and a little bit that. But typically,
VtM. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
typically a single player's turn is over within 30 seconds. It's pretty much straightforward. This is what I do. This is what I'm going to do.
And there really isn't balancing with VtM. Not really.
Yeah, it's made to where you can throw impossible fights at your players, and they just have to be smart enough to run away.
Which, to be fair, D&D is like that. However, it's also much different because the way their combat works.
And let's be honest here, most D&D players, when they get to playing D&D, logic goes out the window, and they just fight it.
The second you roll initiative is go time. We kill it.
Yeah, there is no initiative, okay, I'm going to run away. It's initiative, I have to kill it now.
Yes.
Whereas VtM, it's, oh, we're in combat. I'm going to hop in the car and drive away, because screw all this.
Right.
There's 30 of them and 3 of us. No.
And then we proceed to get in an hour-long car chase.
Yeah, but I mean, chase scenes typically take a long time anyway. It doesn't matter what scene or system you're in.
Not true.
Yeah,
Not true.
I thought the chase scene where we were doing skill checks to get away from the Tremere in the van actually went a lot smoother than when we tried to run away from that zombie horde in the D&D game.
Yeah.
Call of Cthulhu's car chases are ridiculous.
Yeah, there's a whole lot that goes into those, and
there's like pages about how to do it.
See, the thing I find interesting about Call of Cthulhu is, from what I've read, it's more about you're just a normal person trying to sneak around and get around all these really weird things that could kill you just by looking at you. It actively discourages a lot of fights. Like, we don't have very much health.
Yeah.
It discourages fights, but promotes runaway and chase scenes.
Yes.
Is the difference, which is why they have so much about chase scenes.
Yeah, which I'm never going to do it like the book says, because there's a whole lot, and I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to lie. I
read it, and I was like, what?
Yeah, I don't have the patience.
It talks about, like, inching things forward, and, like, it's weird.
Yeah, I don't have the patience for all that, and I don't have, like, the brain power. I'm not going to lie. children under 6 years old kind of takes all the brain power away. Along with my job, which, if you haven't seen on our previous videos, I wear Amazon stuff because I work for a third party for Amazon. It's not as bad as people say sometimes, but yeah. So, like, me doing chasing, I'm not going to do the whole inching thing. No, it's going to be make checks. If group succeeds X out of Y, you're good for the round. Nothing bad happens.
The combat systems for VtM and Call of Cthulhu are both designed to be over very quickly. Like 3 rounds and done is their typical length, although they can go longer.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Theoretically, Dungeons and Dragons should be that too, but it's more often than not that it drags out to 6 to 10 combat rounds.
Yep. And also, Call of Cthulhu and VtM, your combat rounds are a minute or 2 apiece.
Yeah,
D&D,
they go rather
a player could go 2 or 3 minutes. So, yeah, even a fighter can go 2 minutes.
Oh,
Especially
Champion? Was it? Not Champion. Battlemaster.
Yeah, exactly. One of those, give them more than 2 attacks, you're going to be there for a while.
Yep. It takes a lot of knowing your spells to have a quick round as a spellcaster.
Yep.
I could never.
And God forbid the plans change.
Oh my god, no, that is what killed me. I love playing a cleric, but every time I'd have a plan in mind to be like, okay, I'll heal this person and then move on. Then someone else does something stupid and gets hurt, and then I have to go heal them, but that person's now rolling death saves.
We never posted our games when I played Bry, the wizard, warlock wizard. Most of the time I was really good about knowing what I was doing and knowing the spell and getting my turn over quickly. But there were times where it was like, I don't know what to do, and so it took me minutes trying to figure things out.
Yep.
Been there.
Yeah, and like, say, Call of Cthulhu. Beth decides, hey, I want to use this cool new ritual that I found out to mesmerize this person. It's literally, I'm going to do this. Roll a POW. They roll a POW. Okay, cool. And that's the first time. After that, it just works.
Then you're buzzing.
Yeah. I might have fixed it. But yeah.
Speaking of, do you have input?
Yeah.
Not right now. No, we kind of moved on to what I was going to put input in, so it's fine.
Just talk next time.
Yeah. You jump in. You know, I only bite when you tell me to.
We don't know when you want to say something. You just gotta talk.
I was just trying to let Dengle finish.
Yeah. But like Call of Cthulhu, like the rituals that you use, you roll 1 POW. If you pass that, you don't have to roll another one. You just say you do it and spend magic points and sanity. That's how magic works. Super simple, super easy. VtM, it's, I want to do this. Okay, roll presence and manipulation. Okay, I do the thing. Okay. With D&D, it's, I want to cast a fireball. All right, cool. Who all gets hit? Okay, I have to roll save for this one, and this one, that one, this one, that one, this one, that one, this one, that one, that one, and just keep going through until, yeah.
And yet somehow they don't have mass combat rules.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't they used to have rules for hordes or something in earlier editions?
Yes.
There was minions in 4E. I don't know about prior to that.
There were at least third-party and homebrew rules that were readily available for previous editions. 5e gave you suggestions, but like none of them were good, if we're being honest.
Right. And they, if I remember correctly, they even came out and said, like, we're never going to produce them. The game isn't designed for that.
Mm-hmm. And, like, I get that you don't have a design for it, but, like, it's super easy to make one if you already have a full system in place. You just tweak a couple rules. Like, it's pretty much that simple. Like, I know Faye was going to do a basically health pool style, like, horde.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to Angry DM. I was going to use his rules for it, which was really interesting. It broke up the pool and all that for multiple things. But it shouldn't, I don't know, it shouldn't have to come to a third-party source to have decent mass combat rules. Not even mass combat. It was just a couple of extra not NPCs instead of, well, shit, if I have 2 zombies, they're gonna die. But how can I make the fight epic with 1 zombie?
Yeah. Which, give it time, I'm sure Wizards will just take it. Yes, that was a dig at them, because, yeah. Anyway.
Yes.
But, like, yeah, you're right. It shouldn't take somebody else to fix your system. You can look at them like, hey, I like that. We're going to use that. Or use some of that. Or, hey, you over there that isn't really doing a whole lot, figure this out for us. We pay you anyway. It's part of your job. You're a game designer. Go for it.
Yep. Like,
hold off on that Dragonlance thing. Or that... What was the one flying monkey thing? Hadozi? Yeah. Don't worry about finishing that, because that's going to be shit can here in a little bit. Anyway, figure out how to do a horde rule.
Yeah. Let's not worry about Spelljammer until we can worry about the mass amount of enemies that are going to be on these big ships. How about?
Yeah, exactly. Because that would have been perfect to release with it.
Right. So third-party rules and monsters and everything have a place. They're fantastic for homebrew and everything like that. You shouldn't have to drastically change your system with third-party rules.
Exactly. Like, I know with mine, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to handle that when I eventually start, like, fiddling with it. Which, honestly, I'll probably do the whole, like, health pool thing and, you know, because it just makes sense.
It worked. It was interesting.
Yeah. And, like, Call of Cthulhu doesn't have that. But you're also not going to be fighting a horde. You're going to be running away from said horde.
Right.
VtM, you're not going to be fighting a horde, typically.
Yeah, if you're fighting a horde, something is very wrong.
And it's usually a Sabbat invasion.
Yeah.
Or Inquisition raid.
And if that is the case, they provide a generic stat block that is low threat.
Yeah. No, and then you had said something.
Sadora Blood Hunt.
Yes, that's also a thing. At which point, something has went terribly wrong. Like, eventually, Tori might have a blood hunt, but it's okay.
Oh, we might. Oh, good thing I have a backup.
Yeah, it's only if the wrong people realize that the wrong things happen with Tori.
Oh, Okay, I'll ask that later.
Just if the cam realizes she eats people.
Oh, you mean if Carissa finds out?
Pretty much. Anyway, we'll glaze over that. But yeah, no, like they have things in place, and it's easy to just take this and take that and make it work rather than like D&D. Don't have shit that makes it easy typically. People always said that 5e was the player's edition to a certain extent. And kind of right. I mean, it made it easy for the players. There was enough for the DM to get like a headache on if they tried to go too much. Which is typically what.
God forbid a DM try to run more than 4 to 5 non-player characters, enemies.
Yeah, exactly.
It was horrible. Which meant kobold and goblin encounters and zombie hordes and everything were boring.
Absolutely. Because kobolds probably aren't going to hit. Zombies probably not going to hit. Goblins probably not going to hit.
I don't even mean about the hitting. I mean keeping track of them from a DM standpoint.
Yeah, because you have all that extra math to do and all this extra positioning and all this other...
And keeping track of which enemy is what and everything. Like 4, 5 maybe is the maximum I would ever think to do. And even that, because of action economy and everything, is probably going to wipe out your players.
Yes. Even with 4 HP, whatever the hell. You still got 5 attacks on one person, let's say. You don't hit at least once.
Because a lot of low-level creatures have multi-attack.
Yeah. And yeah, no, they're going to be sitting there for like 20 minutes waiting for you to get done with yours. And by the time they get through, you're going to have somebody fall asleep. And yeah, that's also a joke. Hopefully your players don't fall asleep at the table.
It was one time, Dengle.
Oh no, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about somebody else. Actually, in a game that Rooster ran that I was part of.
Oh.
Yeah.
Someone fell asleep at the table?
Yeah, college student. It was a long day. In their defense, it was a long day for them.
I was just gonna say I had a DM fall asleep on me in the middle of a voiced game once.
Yeah, you told us about that.
Oh, that's right, I did.
Yeah, I'm happy to tell you that I've never done that. I've gotten a bit inebriated as a player before and couldn't focus, but like I wasn't disruptive.
All that matters.
Yeah, this was also when I was in the Navy, so I was drinking a lot. Don't drink too much. I've stopped for the most part. Anyway, but yeah, no, like that's the problem with D&D is everything takes so long that like people can get bored.
Oh man, some of the combats where I was playing with Esther, it was, and like no offense to anyone here or anyone that's not here, your turns are just going to take a long time. And I was playing a character who could smash people with a sword.
Yep.
So it was like everyone's taking 5 minutes. Finally comes around to me. Hey, I'm going to hit it with my sword. Roll the dice. My turn's over. Bye.
Yeah.
I feel that.
It was boring. Combat was boring for me.
Perks of playing a fighter.
It wasn't a perk though. Like I I loved Esther. She was a very fun character. But fighting with her was so boring.
Yeah. And you didn't get to do any of the cool paladin stuff yet.
Right. And even when I could, it was, hey, smite.
Yeah.
That's all it would have been.
Yeah. Or I channel divinity, do whatever.
Right.
Okay, I get an extra dice to roll. Cool, yay!
Right. There was... They had the extremes. There wasn't many classes that were in the middle.
Yeah. And the ones that were in the middle, just you got to roll more dice during your turn.
Right. Rogue sneak attack. Ooh, my first one gets extra dice, and then I attack a second time.
Monk.
Cool.
Yeah, monk, I get to attack 17 times in one round. Not.
But all it is here's just my dice pool.
Yeah.
And that's
you
kind
How
of
many
why-
d20s hit?
That's kind of why I liked Warlock as a multi-class option. You only had a couple spell slots to keep track of. And then after that, it was, okay, what else can I do?
Yeah. And, like, I don't know. I like combat, don't get me wrong. But D&D is made for combat. VtM, Call of Cthulhu, not really made for combat.
And it's sad because 5e tried. You can tell they tried going the more roleplay based route. A lot of their stuff is geared towards it, but not the base part of the game. The base part of the game is lengthy combat.
Yeah. And again, with mine, that's part of it. It's not my focus when I'm making mine. It'll be, hopefully, quick in, out, and gone. So we don't have these 3-hour fighting a vampire thing. We have a 15-20 minute max fighting a couple things and going on to the next thing. Because I don't know about all of you, but I like to see good roleplay. Not even necessarily good, decent roleplay makes me happy.
Engagement.
Yes, engagement.
Engagement lags when combat drags.
Yes. And like I've listened to a couple where the roleplay was basically, well, my character would do this, so I'm going to do this. Which that's fine, but like when it's disruptive for everybody else because they're bored and they just want to cause chaos, that's not really engagement. And that's why I say decent roleplay. Because yes, that's roleplay. That's technically engagement, but that's not really engagement. So.
Yeah. That's engagement because to ease boredom, which shouldn't need to be.
Yeah. That's the same thing as when I tell my 5-year-old, hey, go clean up your room. She gets half of it cleaned up and sits down and starts playing with her dolls. She's bored. She doesn't want to do it anymore. Okay, cool. I'm not going to get mad at her for not cleaning up the other half because, like, she doesn't have the attention span to. So if your players start doing that, I would urge you to start trying to figure out different ways to engage them. And that goes for any system. Whether it be D&D, VtM, Call of Cthulhu, GURPS, Shadowrun, Lord of the Rings, Tabletop, the new Marvel one that they just come out with, any of them. If your players are doing stuff like that and causing chaos because they're bored, not necessarily saying that there's anything wrong with you as a DM, because there's not. At least you're trying. but I would try to figure out like how to engage that more. Maybe not physically, but like mentally. Get them more immersive. Get something. That's just me. And that's also why a lot of video game players start like trying to figure out ways to break the game. Because they're still playing, they're still engaged, but they're not immersed.
Definitely.
And I'm guilty of that too, so don't feel bad.
I don't play games I don't get immersed in. Simple as that.
Yeah, I don't have enough time to find new games, so I just play all my old ones.
Don't get me wrong. I don't often play new games. That's why I have hundreds of hours on Skyrim or World of Warcraft.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's one of those things that like every once in a while you're going to get bored. Doesn't matter how immersed you are, how engaged you are, how anything. You are going to get bored. I get it. But if it's a consistent thing, then maybe you should like figure out other ways to do what it is you're trying to do. And for what it's worth, if you're a supervisor / manager / whatever else, and your people at work are doing that thing that you're in charge of, kind of goes under the same thought process.
Life advice from Dengle.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that position. I got one specifically that we can't keep them focused on anything, so we give them just a not ton of tasks. Small tasks, but it keeps them jumping from one to another and gets them all done. Keeps them on task.
Nice.
But yeah, no. Yeah, I know we kind of went off on a tangent there, but it's fine.
It's fine. So we've hit skills, combat, unless you have more to add.
No, I don't.
Not sure what else.
I mean, we can go over like real basic character creation.
Yeah, that is something we should touch on.
Because at this point, I'm pretty sure everybody knows how to make a D&D character. Roll
But
a certain amount.
do they know how to make a D&D character without the online builder?
That is a good question.
Because that's actually difficult.
It is. Like, as someone who Faye brought in as a brand new player, I can say from experience that I had absolutely no idea how to build a character just by reading the book. I had to use the online builder to even begin to figure it out. And even then, my first character was not very well built, was he?
No. We made it work, but he was not great.
Yeah. And see, this is the funny thing about, like, me being... I didn't have all these online builders. So I had to...
Right. And I've made plenty of them without the online builder, but it is difficult. Yeah. The books, especially 5e, is not built and not laid out well for character creation.
Yeah, and it's a lot simpler than people try to make it out to be. It can be extremely confusing, though, if you don't know what you're doing. Because, like, the real nuts and bolts and basics of it, straightforward, easy. You roll some dice, you get some stats, you put the stats in the thing, and assign stuff after you pick a race and a class. There's a whole lot more that goes into it. That's the nuts and bolts of it. Sounds easy. Okay, cool. Go do that right now. On a piece of paper. Figure it out.
Yep. You've got the core rule book, or the player's guide, and that's it. Because some of the stuff you need, or that will help you, is in the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Yep. And
vice versa for the Dungeon Masters.
And first time I played anything, that's basically how it was laid out to me, is go roll some dice, put it in blocks, and figure out the rest. Here's a table.
And those dice rolls make or break a character. They have the standard pool, but that sucks. Point buy is rough. If you don't know how to build a character, point buy is rough.
Even if you do know how to build a character, it can be rough. Because, like, with me, yeah, I know how to build a character. I hate point buy. Because, like, it makes typically speaking, a one-dimensional character. Mechanically speaking.
Yes.
And, yes, mechanics aren't everything. You can roleplay into some stuff. But at the end of the day, you're still going to be rolling dice for X, Y, and Z. So, okay, cool. I just made a barbarian. He's strong, he's dexterous, and he's got a bunch of constitution, but he has no common sense. Can't talk to people.
And that is 95% of the barbarians you build that can be built, by the way.
Yeah. I like to kind of break the mold a little bit and not quote-unquote power game.
Unless you roll well. Then you can. I did it with Esther. She had fantastic charisma. She wasn't dumb as a box of rocks. She was just average. But I rolled really fucking good with her.
Yeah.
Otravaz, your character, you rolled shit with.
Yes. I did what I could with him.
Yeah.
But
he still wasn't... It was difficult to run with him.
Yeah. He's got a whole snot ton of wisdom. Everything else is average. And he's forgetful, is how we put it. He's got negative intelligence. But everything else is like 13, 14, 15. So, like, I did what I could. And I built the best character that I could, mechanically speaking. So,
and unless everyone sticks with a relatively similar dice pool, you get these people who, like you and Cross, rolled so badly on their stats that it's hard to run with them when you have someone who was running with 1 or 2 20s, an 18, and a 16 in their stats.
Yeah.
Because even on their rolls where they weren't skilled in them, they were rolling better than you.
Yeah, when I had proficiency and extras and this, that, and the next, and I was like, I rolled a 14, I did good. They were like, I rolled an 18, and I rolled a 10 on the die. I rolled a 14, and I rolled a 12. What the hell?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, a lot of it does depend on if you're going to roll dice for it, and they take, or they give, and they take away, as it were.
And variations in stats are fun. However, it's discouraging for the people who have the low rolls all the way around, because they rarely do well.
Yeah. And even like their quote-unquote standard array of 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. Like, yeah, you have a couple good stats. You have a couple average stats. You have one bad stat. Which, okay, cool. You can't be good at everything all the time. But even that leaves something to be desired at times.
You don't have a fantastic stat or something you've excelled at or worked at your whole previous life before becoming an adventurer.
Yeah. Now, you can play to numbers and do this, and you can have a high stat of 17, which, again, is fine. But that's as high as you're going to get starting out. Assuming you start at sub 4.
And also probably the highest you're going to get the whole game, because it's... How can you choose stats over a feat? And there are feats that give stats, but not much.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of those are shit.
The feel of progression and character evolution is gone.
Yeah. That's why in previous editions, when they were like, here's feats, At 4, 8, 12, 16, and 20, you have ASIs. They were separate. I liked it.
It worked.
5e, they started out with feats are optional, which like broke my old person brain, because I was like, how do you have this and not have feats? And then I like realized what they were doing with them. I was like, oh, you choose between this or that. Well, I don't like that at all, personally.
Yep. It's either you make your character feel like they're progressing, or you play a numbers crunch.
Yep, which a lot of people play numbers crunch, which if that's what you want to do it.
There are specifics in certain types of games for that.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with playing a numbers crunch heavy combat D&D game, if that is what you're interested in.
Yes.
That is a system for you. It's a fantastic system for that.
Yeah. And going back to creating said character, that's something that you have to plan ahead for. After you roll your initial set, or do your point buy, or assign your standard, like you have to allow for, I'm going to do a numbers crunch, so I'm going to give here and take there and do this and do that. And then heaven forbid you have a DM that's like, you can have an extra feat. Well, shit, what feat do you want? How do we want to do this? Like, yeah, it can get really, really confusing.
In order to optimize a build, and I don't even mean optimize for combat, I mean optimize for what you want the character to do, you basically, even in 5e, it's so much simpler to build your character from 1 to 20, and then every level, that is what you do. There isn't a lot of flow with the way the game takes place. If you building your character like, okay, I'm going to multi-class fighter at level 6 or at level 5 to get this, and the game takes a left turn and you're like, doesn't make sense anymore. But what does make sense doesn't work.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but that's why, like, even Pathfinder was nicer about that.
I think so. I don't know though. When I did play Pathfinder, I just went straight Druid, so I don't know.
Yeah. Well, like, even looking at the book, like, and looking all the theoretical, it's nicer about it. It allows for, well, that doesn't make sense, but this is similar, but it's not, but it's what would make sense more.
Yes.
And there's a little bit more option there. 5e, you have these. That's it.
Like, for example, it was when I was building Brianna, I did build her from level 1 to 20, even though she was a wizard warlock, and I had to make sure certain things hit certain points for her to be even remotely viable long-term character play. Because it was an odd build, not for combat. She was built to learn spells.
Yes.
But it was so specific in how I had to do it to make it not shitty. And it was even harder because I had to leave my option open in early game, because it was either going to be cleric or warlock, depending on how the interactions with the party went. And that was a nightmare to try and plan around.
Yeah. And me and Faye did a lot of like, hey, this is the plan. And I'm not saying that I had to, but I worked around that. And even Buttons like had a plan. It changed very quickly because Buttons was like, oh, chronergy. I like it.
Sense with the narrative.
Yeah. Which the plan was originally fighter, right?
Mm-hmm. After her dad, yeah.
Which I allowed for that to be a thing. You can be a smart fighter. You can be an Eldritch Knight. But you specifically were like, I want chronergy because chronergy fits. Um,
And it also opened up a lot of lore by doing that. If I had stayed with my original plan as fighter, I would not have been able to pursue certain avenues of interest and concern, or at least not as easily, or made it fit the narrative to be pursuing those avenues.
yeah. So again, going back to Faye's original comment of you have to build the character from 1 to 20, you have to do that, but you also have to build in wiggle room. Unless if you're going to be strictly doing that, which I've done before, and it is awful because stuff changes all the time. So, like, I have made it to where I was playing a rogue or whatever in 5e and going that way, and my plan was to go bard. But then they started doing more fighter stuff, and I was like, it would make more sense to go fighter. But that's not how I'm specifically built this, and it wouldn't, like, do numbers well, and this is a mainly numbers game, so let's do that.
God forbid if you start building up your feats going in one direction. You only get like 6 of them.
Yeah.
If you pick badly or have to make a left turn in your character progression, like, you're screwed.
Yeah.
You're never going to be good at either of them.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, like, for what it's worth, part of me didn't like D&D for that reason. To play it. DM it, I was fine. But to play it, it's like, this is... The reason why I played is because majority of the people, that's what they play. And to find other people to play other systems is so few and far between, typically speaking, that, like, it's not worth the effort for me, because, yeah.
It sounds like we're ragging a lot on D&D. It's a fun game. It can be very fun. We had a ton of fun in certain points.
It is very crunchy.
Yes.
And
less so in 5e, but still very crunchy.
Yeah. And it's very... If you want to be good at it, or you want your character to be good at it, this is your path. If you want to have fun and just say screw it and proverbially pee in the wind, and don't care if your character is particularly good at anything, then go ahead. Do whatever it is on a whim that you want to do. I've seen some crazy builds that were absolutely garbage, but the person playing them was having fun. If you don't care about the numbers and the skills and the crunchy and the this and the that, if it's purely roleplay, do what you want.
But in order to make that fun, in my opinion, your group has to play like that.
Yes, and your DM
You can't have one person that's like, okay, I'm playing this numbers game. I'm going to build the best character I can. And then the next person's like, I just want to have fun, dude. I don't care what I pick. And the rest of them are like, I'll go whichever way the group wants. It doesn't work.
Yeah. Like, I've seen somebody legitimately play a ranger, rogue, barbarian, fighter, wizard build. It was absolutely horrible. But they were having fun, so it doesn't matter. And then I've seen somebody go straight barbarian, max everything out that they could possibly max out. They were having absolutely zero fun because they were like, well, I made the best character that I can make and I'm doing all this extra stuff and blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah, but, like, do you have sustenance in the character? Do you have this? Do you have that? Oh, no. Okay, well. Next go around, wing it. Don't have a plan, just go for it. They did that and they had fun. So again, 5e's fun. For what it's worth, it's fun. But like, for me at least, it leaves a little bit to be desired at times. Because for me, it felt like you had 3 paths to go down. The I don't care path, the I'm going to be viable path, and I'm going to make the strongest character that I possibly can path. And they didn't merge very often for me.
No. Like, I had a couple characters that were fun to play that I built specifically to be very good at combat because I was playing in a couple very specific games. I tended to build towards an idea of a character. As in, like Brianna, her theme was get all the spells, get all the rituals, be the biggest knowledge hoarder that they could be. That was a very specific build. But it also wasn't power gaming build. She was atrocious in combat.
Until she got that staff.
Until she got the staff, and then she slaughtered an island. But we don't care about that one. Because it was an exterior object that made her that way.
Yeah, and I specifically was like, I'm going to throw this at you because you need something.
Yes.
Whereas, like, most of Button's characters, good at combat, not necessarily built for combat, but good at combat. More support, though, from what I've noticed.
Yeah. The only exception to that was when we were playing the Strahd module.
Yeah.
I'd heard prior to that it was very hard, so I went in saying, okay, I need to sacrifice a little bit of this because it's just this small group trying to wade through this daunting module, and still tried to make it at least interesting.
Yeah. And we all went in power gaming on that one.
And there's another thing. I love playing support builds, but because we already had someone in the group that did that, that also meant that we could not have another. Yeah. Combat could not have progressed well with another support class or another support player.
Yeah. And 5e feels like you have to have most of the roles filled. Not necessarily all of them, but most. VtM, you don't have to have any of the roles technically filled.
No, not really.
Which is hilarious to me.
Which we're going to be seeing in a few weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about VtM character creation. We've talked a lot about Dungeons and Dragons. Let's move to VtM. Or we could go to Call of Cthulhu and then VtM.
Call of Cthulhu is a little bit more D&D related, so let's go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Again, for your stats, which strength, dex, con, intelligence, power, appearance, education, and luck, I believe, and size. Yep. You're gonna roll dice to get those numbers. Depending on which skill it is, depending on what dice you roll, and it gets extra modifiers, it gets confusing. I would highly recommend having the book open next to you with their walkthrough, but they do a very good job of walking you through it, in my opinion.
They do. They lay it out well. There is a few places in the books that, like, they should have rearranged a few things.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Overall, it is nice. However, I would say if there was a game that needs an online character builder, it is that one.
Absolutely. It took me forever to figure out the first time through.
Yeah.
Yes.
There is one. It's just not very good. That's why I didn't give it to you guys.
And that's fine. I'm talking about, like, first party, like, Chaosium.
Yeah.
readily use one.
Yeah. Again, I really don't know if they're focused on that type of stuff though.
They aren't. They have barely an online presence, I think.
Yeah, which is fine.
Can be fantastic. It means they're out of a lot of this current stuff that is happening.
Yes. But yeah, no. Going back to actually creating a character, I would highly recommend having the book open next to you. Step 1, step 2, step 3. I think it goes all the way to step 10.
Yeah, they go piece by piece very well. If you follow the book to the letter without skipping around, you'll have a fully built character at the end of it.
Yep. Might not be great, but it'll be fully built. But yeah, after you get all your stats, then it goes to figuring out all of your modifiers, which they could probably wait a little bit to get that one, personally.
Yeah, I don't like the positioning of where that one is. Because you don't have an idea of the character yet.
Yeah, I would personally tell you go stats, then occupation, which you have to pick an occupation.
Yes.
Depending on exactly what your occupation is, depends on what your occupational skills are and what your occupational skill points are. And again, this is one of those things that they do actually lay out a point buy system for. So everybody could have the same thing and buy their stats. It's great.
I like it and I don't like it.
Yeah.
I get a little bit frustrated sometimes with my rolls. I've gotten a lot of successes, but that's just because I typically roll very low. Saoirse's stats are shitty.
Yeah.
And I didn't spread them out very far.
No. You just didn't have a lot to spend.
Exactly. And yes, part of that was a choice. I chose to take a lower education. But I don't know. It was frustrating to be hindered by that so much. Because I didn't realize it when I was first creating them.
Yeah. Education is paramount. And technically speaking, as you roll, it's where you should be assigning your stats.
Right. We did a tiny bit of homebrew with that.
Yeah. House rule of you can assign them as you saw fit. But
Chaos lays it out in their rules that you take what you get, which is rough for building a character you want to play.
Yeah. Like I've made a certain engineer / mechanic. And I did lay it as you get. And holy nut balls, it's rough.
Yeah, Barnabas's stats were way lower the first time I rolled them.
Yeah. So like exactly. If you assign as you roll in the order that they tell you, you could end up with really good stats or really, really bad stats for what you want to play. So from there, pick your occupation. The occupation will tell you like education and this times 2 gives you occupational skill points, or education times 4, depending on exactly what the occupation is. From there, you can they have a list on there, and some of them it says choose any skill, which is nice because, oh, cool, I want my librarian to know how to fire a pistol. Because that makes perfect sense, right? But you can assign them as you see fit. Most of the time, they're very specific to that occupation too, which is really nice. Like you pick a criminal, and they have lockpick and drive and mechanical repair, electrical repair, stealth, survival, brawl, like fighting brawl, and stuff like that. You have an accountant. They have accounting, library use, just a bunch of clerical stuff. And then you have like soldier, and they have all of the physical stuff, like swimming and running and throwing and survival, firearms and whatever. So again, it kind of gives you the character that you want to play straight from like the first or second choice that you make. And again, it's easy because once you have your skills that you have to like multiply, and then the skill points that you get, then you just assign them. You want a higher skill total. Like, you don't want a 20 in a skill, because it's really hard to roll below a 20. But you don't necessarily want a 90 either, because that might be too high. Because, well, yes, it's really easy for you to make that. What other skills are lacking because of it?
Right.
Yeah. So it's kind of another balancing act, and you have to buy your wealth, basically. Credit rating is a thing. So, and they've got this big, like, if it's this to this, then you get this much base, and then times this, and look in the book, it'll lay it out.
I do like that they don't hugely focus on item acquisition and things like that. It is something I enjoy in games, that type of bookkeeping, but it also can bog down things a lot if you don't remember. That being said, it's also so ambiguous that it's like, I don't know if I have a camera. Do I have a camera keeper?
Yeah, and at that point, it would be your buying power. Is the camera below your buying power? Yes. Okay, cool. You're fine. Is it not below? Okay. Roll your credit rating. You can push the roll and take one off your credit rating to get said item if you want. But, like, is it worth it? And heaven forbid you decide you want to be a drifter.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be skilled in a whole bunch of stuff. Credit rating is not going to be good, so you ain't going to be able to afford anything. And then the next step past occupational skills is personal skills, which most of us didn't realize that we were supposed to do that initially. Which basically all that is, it's a separate pool that you can assign to anything that's intelligence times 2. So roll that 25 intelligence, assign it there. It's going to be rough because you don't have a whole lot of personal skills. On the other hand, get lucky and roll 75 there. That's 150 free skills to put in anything you want except for Cthulhu Mythos.
Hilariously, that's where most of my skill points came from.
Yes. Because Saoirse's at like an 80, right?
Something
Maybe
like that. Fairly high intelligence, but her education was only 45.
Yeah.
Their education was only 30 or 45. Like, below average, meaning I got basically nothing.
Yeah. But then again, Saoirse's just a country kid from the Irish, like, boondocks.
And I made that background to make it work. Not necessarily what I wanted, but I made it work.
But you also knew that you needed a decent POW, so you didn't start off with like 5 sanity.
Right.
Which, that's a whole other thing.
Very fun attribute, but rough.
Yeah. Because sanity and magic points and hit points, they're all calculated. Sanity's 1 for 1 with your POW, so whatever your power is, That's what you get. That's what you start out with. You can't change it. Can't go up. It can only go down. Which that's so fun. We've already started to see some of the issues with our current characters.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that it can't go up easily. I don't like that part of the game.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out a short-term way to make that happen, because like short-term therapy is not going to help you a whole lot.
Right. And don't get me wrong, I understand why they did that. It makes sense that overall you don't. But it also is like with Saoirse, when they looked behind the curtain, I knew I was in for a world of hurt on the sanity thing. But it was in character.
Yeah.
And that dropped me very low because I think you just gave me max at that point.
No, I did actually roll it. It's just I rolled really well. I rolled a d10. I think I gave you 6.
Oh, I don't know. I know it was a lot, and it hurt.
Yeah. And if you lose a certain amount, then you get delusions. Or if you lose a certain amount, when you lose more, then you get illusions. And if you lose over a certain amount, then you have to roll an intelligence. And if you pass the intelligence, then it's even worse. And it gets kind of muddy at that point. So, Call of Cthulhu can be a bit rules heavy at times.
Yes.
But overall, it's pretty quick, pretty easy.
Yeah, despite how rules heavy it is, everything goes typically rather quickly.
It's also written really well.
Yes.
So after your personal skills, then you start doing all your modifiers, is how we would do it. Figuring out your size bonus by figuring out your actual assets and spending power and all this fun stuff. And say you're 50 years old, how much less speed do you have, and figuring out what your speed is, and all. Again, calculations, have the book next to you. It'll lay it all out. Figuring out how much extra add to your education due to your age, which is another roll. How much to take off of strength and dex and all that fun stuff due to your age. It's all in the character creation thing that they lay out. Again, the character creator in the book, it's great. It helps you out 100%. It gets confusing.
It is such a crunchy system to build a character on.
Yes, but once you have built the character, then you're like, oh, that was easy. Or, well, not necessarily easy, but, oh, that was understandable. I can probably do it again.
No, I think no matter how many times you do it, this is one of the crunchiest number-heavy character builders that I have played. Or between the three of them especially. I don't know about Shadowrun, but like it is definitely a rough one to build a character out of.
Yeah, no, Shadowrun's pretty... Shadowrun players will tell you that Shadowrun's easy. Shadowrun's tough. For a non-Shadowrun player. Anyway, going back to Call of Cthulhu. Yeah, it's crunchy. It's fun, but it's crunchy.
You're rarely going to be able to build a character without having the book next to you and reading it line by line.
Yeah, I've actually went so far as to put a sheet together for us that they can just fill in stuff. And it basically does all the math for them, so they don't have to worry about it. Whether or not they use it is on them, but I made it.
And on top of that, it is so easy to die or go insane. Meaning you're probably going to be building multiple characters if you have a long-running game.
Yes. Kind of going back to what we said before, sanity just goes down. Doesn't go back up. I'm trying to figure out how to build a mechanic in to make it go back up and why they would go back up?
There's sort of one, but it takes months and months and months in game.
Yeah, and most games don't have that.
Right.
Your health as well doesn't go up. It's not like you get levels. You can't really train either to like make your health go up. You are stuck at specific health. Like Barnabas has 6 health. That's all he's got. But again, that was a choice that Nen made. But Barnabas is also this frail office worker. Like he didn't expect to be fighting a otherworldly being.
What otherworldly being? We were just dealing with weird people.
Yeah, exactly. Like he might occasionally have to deal with a distraught widow that he just called over security and was like, "All right, cool, you get to deal with him now." Rather than like a dog come up and bite him and almost bring him down because he doesn't have a whole lot of health. Heaven forbid if the guy on the ship would have hit him.
Man, Saoirse had 12 health, and by the end of that, I had 2.
Yeah. And massive damage like that doesn't work the same as other games. There's not a whole lot of mitigating that.
There was basically nothing I could do about it.
Yeah.
The instant that thing turned to me, I was like, oh, Saoirse's gonna die.
Oh, no, this is gonna bad. Yeah, no, and like, say Barnabas would have gotten hit by him, would have had a major injury, which probably would have potentially paralyzed him and basically rendered him not usable, or would have just outright killed him. Because major injury versus minor injury, which is like a broken leg or broken arm, which I just kind of was like, this makes sense. Which is how it did that. If it would have hit Barnabas, it probably would have done a whole lot more damage. Like internally. That nobody could have really fixed. Even Eileen. So yeah. If you're going to play Call of Cthulhu, figure out how to make a character. Make multiple of them. Your first time before you actually make your first real character.
Yeah, that was one thing I did not do.
Yeah. That way, when you go to make an actual character, play it. All right, cool. To use a podcast that I've listened to kind of help me understand how to run the games outside of mechanics. I got bitten by a bipedal land shark. And I died. Alright, cool. I can hurry up and make another one. It's still going to take you 45 minutes because all the extra stuff. But you can make another one relatively quickly. So, Call of Cthulhu, like Faye said, very crunchy. Just letting you know when you start doing it.
Fun to play, easy to play once you get into it, difficult to build.
Yes. And then, finally, arguably the easiest one to build once you understand what the disciplines do. VtM.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah, they give you specific, this is the numbers that you get to put into certain things. Go, basically, is what they do. Your stats are, you get 4 and 1 stat, 3 and 2 stats, 2 and 4 stats, and 1 and 1 stat, right?
It depends on what you decide to go with. I believe they have specialist, balanced, and jack of all trades.
Yeah, that's for skills.
Yeah, no, their attributes are 4, 3, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or 2, 2, 1, whatever.
Yeah, and that's for your strength, dex, stamina, charisma, manipulation, composure, intelligence, wits, and resolve. To assign them as you see fit, and you can make any sort of character with those, given any sort of clan. Typically, I like to go in knowing which clan I want to be.
I would say knowing what clan you are playing first is helpful.
Yeah. That way you can kind of look at their disciplines and be like, all right, cool, I know I need this and that.
Whether you want to build a standard of that one or not, or go against the grain, it's easier knowing what you want to build with.
Yeah, like, for instance, Tori. Gangrels aren't typically smart. What is Tori's intelligence?
4.
Exactly.
Her highest attributes are science and things like that. Like, very much against the typical Gangrel build.
Yep. However,
by choice.
Yep. However, Shiloh, what's your highest stat?
Charisma.
Oh wow, what's Auspex typically go off of? Charisma, right?
Yeah.
Or wits. Which Shiloh's got a pretty good wits on that too.
Mm-hmm.
Steven's the weird one. Steven's like, I'm stabbing things.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a combat character in case no one else did.
Yeah, no, and it worked out perfectly because nobody else really did. Sort of. I mean, Tori is, but also isn't, but also is. It's weird.
I stepped away from it after, and this is a perfect example of that, actually. When I built Tori, I built her with combat in mind. I planned on her being the combat-focused character. However, after the first game, my rolls for combat were atrocious. And I was able to step away from it relatively easily without ruining the character.
Yeah, which is great. Because when it comes to skills, as Nan said, you got your specialist, you got jack of all trades, and you got your balanced, which they've got different spreads. I'm not going to go over the spreads because there's a lot of numbers in there, and I'm just going to confuse everybody. So basically, if you want to be really good at just a couple things, specialist. If you want to be good at everything, jack of all trades. Or, well, decent at everything, jack of all trades.
Passable at everything.
Yeah. If you want to be decent at some things, balanced. And in the last 48 hours, I have probably made at least one of each. If not multiple of each for upcoming things.
What did you guys pick for yours? I picked specialist for Tori.
I also did specialist.
I did specialist too.
Do you know what CoC did?
Believe she also picked specialist.
Nice.
Which I feel like most people do. Because it's less to assign. You're good at, like, actually good at one thing specifically. But, like, I could see...
Oh, go ahead.
I could see somebody playing, like, the information broker Nosferatu and being a jack of all trades.
I was going to say, with the backup character I built, in case Tori gets unplayable for whichever reason, there's multiple ways that could go. But, you know, the backup character I built is a jack of all trades. I'm fairly certain. And it was an interesting one to build.
Yeah, because you've got so many other skill points to be able to put out but
None of them are
doesn't necessarily-
fantastic, except for one, maybe two.
yeah, and typically it goes directly with something else, like intelligence and academics, or intelligence and occult, or intelligence and technology, dexterity and melee, stuff like that. Strength and brawl.
Yes.
You could make a really, really good combat-based, like Gangrel or Bruja, or even Toreador, or not Toreador, Tremere. No, not Tremere. Venture. That's the one I'm trying to say. If you 4 in strength and took brawl as your highest for jack of all trades, you could still be completely combat viable and still be in the same vein as a typical one, but still be able to do everything else. Maybe not great, but they can do it.
Yep.
So taking like jack of all trades doesn't necessarily put you at a disadvantage. Taking Valor doesn't really put you at a disadvantage. Arguably, it could actually put you at an advantage.
What? For building what?
Taking one of the alternate like archetypes of like balanced or jack of all trades rather than a specialist.
I actually think specialist is much more limiting than the other ones.
Absolutely.
Like Tori's highest ones have come up once or twice, and that was only because she was doing her own personal things.
Right.
I mean, occult is good for her, but it's not her highest. Her highest haven't come up in any of the roles other than the 1 or 2 times I did medicine. Or like the impromptu surgeries and stuff like that.
Yeah. But again, just because like she's really good at those doesn't necessarily mean that like she can't do anything else though.
Oh,
which is kind of why I like VtM.
She's good at other things. I'm just saying, like, the specialized builds, if the story doesn't work out for you, then you aren't going to be rolling that very often.
Yeah, and your specializations, they can be hyper-specific.
They should be hyper-specific.
Yeah. Like, what's one of Shiloh's specializations?
She specializes in veiled threats.
Exactly. So, like, intimidation, veiled threats. Hyper-specific. Steven is melee knives? Is one of his specializations, Jay?
Melee and specifically a butcher knife for a specialization.
Exactly. Hyper-specific. Small
What's
knife.
one of your craft ones? I know you have craft.
Yeah, craft is my 3. My phone's acting up, so I can't quite look at this.
I think you picked woodworking.
Yes.
I would love to know why you picked that, by the way, but that's a discussion for later.
Specifically for crafting steaks.
Oh. That tracks. I love it so much. It's great.
Yeah, and, like, I haven't technically made you roll that yet.
He did.
Yeah, he did. It's just, I didn't necessarily, like, wasn't going to make him roll it. Still did it. Worked out well.
Too well.
Like, yeah. But, like, with Tori, yours is...
I've got a couple. Let's see. Hematology, genetics, stealth against kindred, and protean weapons.
Yeah. And that's your specializations. We've used hematology. But again,
Recently,
was,
only.
Yes. But that was for your own stuff.
Yep.
That is so hyper-specific that, like, I don't know if I'll ever actually bring it up in-game.
And that's fine. I built it knowing it wouldn't come up, but also that when it did, it would help a lot.
Genetics might come up. Other things. And then, what was the other one?
Stealth against Kindred, because she's a blood leech.
Yep, which we have seen exactly why she would have that.
Oddly enough, the roll itself has only come up once or twice so far.
Right. But liking to eat other kindred.
Yeah.
Not necessarily fully diablerizing, but,
I'm sure we'll be delving heavier into that soon.
Yeah, or at least setting up a system so Tori can actually feed off of what she enjoys.
Choking down dog blood.
Yeah.
And then my last one is protein weapons, which has come up an awful lot.
Yep, which that goes into disciplines, which once you pick your clan, assign all your skills and all your stats and all that fun stuff, then you get to pick your disciplines for your clan. Each clan gets 3 disciplines. Some of them doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but they make enough sense. But it's fine. It's because they try to condense down from previous editions and other editions. Did they do the best job of it? Probably not. Do I care? No.
It's good enough.
We're telling a story. Yeah. We're not doing number crunchy. And we don't know enough, generally speaking, to know the difference. Because we didn't play other ones.
No, we did not.
So, like, dropping necromancy, I don't know anything about it. I know it was a Giovanni thing. I don't know anything else about it, though.
The most I know about it is from reading the unofficial wiki and thinking, those are really cool, but wow, is there a lot of them.
Yeah. I like less confusing, personally. Especially when I'm just learning something. So you get 3 points to assign to your clan disciplines. You can only assign 2 at creation into 1 using those 3 points. If that makes any sense. So, like, for Steven, Auspex, Presence, and Obfuscate.
Obfuscate and Dominate.
Okay, there we go. You chose to put 2 in Obfuscate?
2 in Auspex and 1 in Obfuscate.
Okay, I had it backwards.
You have an obfuscate? You haven't used it yet.
No, I didn't. 2 in Auspex, 1 in Obfuscate. Obfuscate?
Yeah. Yeah, which at that point you can pick level 1 powers, pick level 2 powers. Basically. You got 1 dot, 1 level 1. You got 2 dots, you can pick 2 level 1s and 1 level 2, or 2 level 1s, or 1 level 1, 1 level 2. If I can speak correctly. Straightforward, pretty easy. Figure out what you want to do. A lot of Nosferatu like to pick Cloak of Shadows and Unseen Passage.
Yes.
It helps them from being a masquerade violation.
Which is important.
Yeah, which is pretty important. A lot of Gangrel like to be able to shape change.
That's what I did.
A lot of Malkavians like to either mesmerize, which is a dominate thing, or be able to tell like auras and futures and premonitions, which I think the thing is actually called premonition.
I think
Yeah.
Not a whole lot necessarily do what Steven did. Which I like what Steven did, don't get me wrong. It works well. But once you figure out what your clan disciplines are, exactly what you want to do, then you figure out your predator type, which gives you another specialization, depending on the predator type, as well as another discipline, which you can pick between 2 on one predator type. So you could theoretically, if you built it properly, have a level 3 discipline at creation, which is kind of cool. You don't have to spend anything on it because level 3 gets expensive. Isn't that right, Faye?
Oh boy, he does it ever. That was how I bought my shape change from the experience we got.
Yeah. Yeah, which advancing in VTM's not really that difficult. I would highly recommend getting the DM screen or the storyteller screen and just reading off of that.
It's just time consuming.
Yes, it takes a long time to be able to advance.
But when you do advance, there is such a noticeable difference in how your character plays for the more expensive ones.
Yes. So along with most of the predator types, you get advantages and merits and flaws. Like prey exclusions and enemies and like folkloric bane and block depending on which character is, or stigmata or stake bait, which we like stake bait around here.
Oh man, we're learning all about that one.
Yeah, it's fine. But yeah, now depending on what the predator type is, you get merits, flaws, advantages, all that fun stuff. Some of them you get choices, some of them you don't. It all depends on what it is. After that, you actually pick your personal merits and flaws. From the book, it says 7 merit points, 2 flaw points. You can get more merits if you want more flaws.
I think it's you can purchase an additional 2 merit points per 1 flaw point.
Or vice versa, I think, maybe. I don't know.
I don't remember. I did a lot of it with Tori. That was how a lot of her stuff came in.
Yep, which I asked about because I didn't actually see that, and Faye did, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I appreciate it.
I've got a decent chunk of negatives for all of the good stuff that I got.
Yeah. And if Buttons ever runs one, I'm probably going to have all of the negatives except for like 2. And all of the flaws, or all of the advantages. But anyway, that here nor there. But basic 7 advantages, 2 flaws, and that's dots or points or whatever you want to call it. Some of the advantages cost like 6, like unbondable.
It cost 5, I think.
Okay, well, 5.
Yeah, no, it basically ate up all of my points.
Yeah, if you take that,
which is why I have so many negatives.
Yeah, which if you take that, then you don't really get a whole lot of extra.
No.
So if you want more, you got to take more flaws, which sucks to a certain extent. Or if you're like, I don't want a whole lot of flaws, cool, just stick with your 7.
Which that's pretty easy to do. There's a lot of really nice 1 and 2 dot merits.
Yeah. But yeah, no. Eventually, pick all your merits, pick all your flaws, and then figure out your HP, your generation, which generation plays a big part, and talk to your storyteller about that. Because 10th and 11th can get kind of funky. 12th, 13th, no problem. 14th, 15th, 16th, technically there is a 16th. That's Thin Blood. Thin Bloods are weird. They're a completely different thing. I'm not going to cover those.
They are their own beast.
Yes, literally. But yeah, no. Then beyond that, like I said, figure out your willpower, your HP, your humanity, depending on your predator type, your blood potency, and your generation. That's pretty much it. I mean, there's not a whole lot extra to it.
Super easy calculations.
Yeah, like willpower is resolve and composure.
Yeah.
HP is 2 plus your stamina.
Even with the blood potency modifiers, the most difficult part about it is remembering to use them.
Yes.
I am notorious at forgetting mine, because Tori has blood potency of 2. Notorious for forgetting mine.
I'm going to forget mine all the damn time, I guarantee it. When I get to do something. Which, spoilers, phase run in the game.
It will take place after our special episodes.
Yes, after Tori gets her day. Night.
Don't put Tori in the day. No.
Yeah, no, that'd be bad.
It's been a long time since she's seen the daylight.
Yeah, like 5 years, right? It's been more than that.
Hang on.
Been a whole lot of years. No specifics.
Okay.
So many.
It's been a whole bunch of years. I don't remember.
It's been a decent chunk.
Yeah. But yeah, no. Phase running in the game, I'm rubbing. I'm gonna have a rather low for most of us generation, so I have higher blood potency. But it's okay, because yeah. But yeah, no, it's super easy. Even making a lower generation, you just get more experience points. Because depending on when you're embraced, you get experience points, and it's this whole thing. Steven technically shouldn't have had any. I gave him some. Because he was a baby. Everybody else, they were borderline having 35. They started out 15, though. And then I gave them a couple extra here and there.
Yeah, we had some... In our session zeros, you gave us a decent chunk of points.
Yeah. Mainly because I was like, I'm going to set them up for success.
Was helpful.
Yep. And then, yeah, after that, you just start rolling dice and start role-playing for VtM. It's straightforward.
D&D tries to encourage role-playing, and it does to an extent. It is bogged down by the combat. Call of Cthulhu? It's hard to get into the character when you know it's so easy to die.
It encourages exploration, though.
Yes, absolutely. It's just hard to connect to the character.
To a certain extent. I can see that.
Well, even not taking the health into account. Knowing your character is going to go insane. Super fun to play. But, and plus the way the stats are rolled typically, it's hard to connect to a character that you didn't necessarily want to play.
Yeah.
We're having fun with it. Don't get me wrong. Love playing Saoirse. Great fun. But it was only in the past game or two where I finally, connected to the character.
Yeah. I feel like Buttons immediately made that connection because personal things.
Yeah, it helped a lot that I started with a character archetype that I'm very familiar with and can easily connect to already outside of game.
Yeah. And then as far as Barnabas, I don't know if Nen connected immediately, but I felt like Nen connected pretty quick with that one.
When I first made Barnabas, I was trying to think of fun ways to get him killed.
Hey, that's fine. That is perfectly fine. We might end up doing that. Who knows?
I had nothing. The only thing that I had in common or connected with Saoirse is the interest in the fairy tales. That's it.
Yeah. And then Kosia makes anti-Kosia. Like, Etta loves the creepy crap. Kosia doesn't. So, yeah. But I feel like if there is not a personal connection there, then there's something, there's something there between Kosia and the character that, like, she seems to be having a whole lot of fun with it.
Stepping out of the box can be super fun if you are with a group that you trust.
Yeah, exactly. Like this group and us.
Yep.
I feel like we do a very good job of earning each other's trust.
Hands down.
So that is my final thing. Trust your group. And if you feel like you can't trust your group, you're probably not in the right group, unfortunately.
Also, you have to be able to trust your DM, storyteller, keeper, whatever else they're called, GMs, or you're not going to be in for a fun time. You're going to constantly be like, is my character going to die? Are they going to specifically go after me to make my character in for a rough time?
Yeah. So, like, if you're in that group and you don't enjoy that, don't torture yourself. Take care of yourself. It might be hard to find a new group, but it'd be worth it. It might take you 3 or 4 tries to find somebody that you enjoy. Stick to it. Stick with them. It's not worth being miserable. And trust me, I know. It's not worth being miserable to deal with something that you're like, I enjoy doing X, but I don't like the people. So, just keep that in mind, please. I know this is mainly supposed to be for the whole, like, nuances between this and that and next, but it's also like public service. I feel like at this point, take care of yourselves.
Yes.
Have fun with whatever you play, even if you don't want to play anything else besides one system. Make sure you're having fun doing it.
Find a group that you have fun with.
Yes.
And if you're not, keep looking. Maybe pick up 1 or 2 along the way and keep them.
Yeah, I've done that. I promise you.
That's what we did.
Yeah. We have cycled people out multiple times.
Yes.
Kept the good ones, kicked out the bad.
Yep.
So, believe we've got another thing that we're planning on doing tonight. So, for this particular thing, I'm personally good to move on.
I'm good. I feel we left off in a great place.
Okay. So, let's move to a not so great place in World of Darkness. And a recap.